Hello everybody, and welcome to the fifth fundamentals video. For today we're going to be getting to know dotted half notes a little bit better. We're going to be talking about how much rhythm they get, how much duration they're given in time and in music, what they look like along with some other notes and how that works, what is dotted half note's favorite color, does it like long walks on the beach, anything that you'd ever want to know about a dotted half note. We're going to get to know about it today. So pretty exciting stuff, if I may say so. Okay, so how exactly do the dots work per se? Because you can actually add a dot to any kind of note you want. Half note, quarter note, eighth note, even some others that I don't even have listed here. So, alright, so what does a dot do exactly? A dot adds half the value of any note you put it on. So let's talk about the half note first. There are two quarter notes within one half note. So what's one half of a half note? Well, that'd just be one quarter note. So when you put a dot on a half note, that means that it's now worth one half note plus half of that, which will be one quarter note. So a half note plus a quarter note. Okay, let's talk about the quarter note next. There are two eighth notes and one quarter note. So if you made a dotted quarter note, that would mean that would equal now a regular quarter note plus an eighth note, because one eighth note is half of one quarter note. And lastly, the eighth note, there are two 16th notes in one eighth note. So if you have a dotted eighth note, that means that's equal one regular eighth note plus one 16th note, because a 16th note is half of an eighth note. Okay, so here's all those music math problems again. The main thing to remember is that dots add one half the value of the note you put them on. So this is a really important concept to understand. So before you move on, just take a look at this slide, pause the video if you need to, and really understand how these rhythm math equations work. Alright, so here we have a measure of rhythm here. And before we talk about the actual notes, let's look at our time signature and see what that's telling us. The top number tells us how many beats are in each measure, in which case that's 4. And the bottom number tells us which kind of note is assigned the beat. What note are we using to show the beat? And in this case, since it's a 4, that means quarter notes are the beats. So that also means we start with this half note here. Since quarter notes are beats, that means that half note gets 2 beats. And then after that we have 2 regular quarter notes, so that takes care of beat 3 and beat 4. But we already knew all this. We're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about dotted half notes. So let's say we turned that first half note into a dotted half note. So there we go. And what that means is now that is worth 3 beats, because again, a dotted half note equals a regular half note plus a quarter note. So that quarter note on beat 3 can no longer be there, right? So that's got to go away. So now what we have left is our dotted half note, which takes care of the first 3 beats, plus that last quarter note on beat 4. So what would all this sound like? Well, I'm going to use my metronome here that clicks, that beeps on each beat. So there's our metronome. And so here we go, and this is going to show the duration of the dotted half note, and also when we get to beat 4. So here we go. If I were to say this on ta, this is how it would go. 1, 2, ready, go. Ta, 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 ta. Or if I count it, 1, 4, 1, 4. You can hear how this dotted half note lasts 3 clicks, or 3 beats worth, right? One more time. Ta, 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 ta. So there you have it. That's how dotted half notes work. They get 3 beats in this time signature. Okay, the next slide is kind of doing the same thing. This time, though, we have a 3/4 time signature. Our quarter note is still assigned the beat, but now we can only fit 3 quarter notes in each measure as opposed to 4. And here we go. We have a half note, a regular half note to start off with. A half note is worth 2 quarter notes, so that's going to be worth 2 beats yet again. And then we have this quarter note, and that's going to be beat 3. And that takes care of our measure. Okay, and so yet again, I really want to change that first half note into a dotted half note, which is going to be worth 3 beats. And here's another way to think about it. Let's say, take this quarter note, and what if that quarter note was kind of absorbed into that half note, right? That would turn it into a dotted half note. So as you can see, the dotted half note is worth 3 beats, and that's the maximum amount of beats we can have in a measure in 3/4 time signature. So a dotted half note in 3/4 will always be by itself in the measure. Since it's worth 3 beats, it takes care of all of the beats in each measure. Okay, so there's one quick thing we got to talk about before we get to the next slide, and the last slide for that matter. Here again we have a dotted half note and a quarter note. The dotted half note, since it's worth a half note plus a quarter note, is worth 3 beats. That takes care of our first 3 beats, and the quarter note on 4. But you know what? What if we wanted not a note here that lasts for 3 beats? What if we wanted silence that lasted for 3 beats? Well, instead of just showing either 3 quarter rests or a half rest followed by a quarter rest, just like dotted half notes exists, you can also have a dotted half rest. So since that's a rest, you would now be silent for those first 3 beats, which is why I'll put parentheses around 1, 2, and 3. And what would this sound like? Well, it's quite simple. You're just going to hear 3 beats of 3 beats go by without me doing anything, and then I'll come in on that beat 4 right there. So here we go. 2, ready, go. 4. 4. And just in case that's not obvious enough, I'll say shh on each beat that I'm resting for. 2, here I go. Shh, shh, shh. 4, shh, shh, shh. 4. So that's it for this slide. Just know that dotted half rests is indeed a thing. They exist, and you will see them. Okay, so here we go. Last slide, and this is just a 6-measure example using dotted half notes and dotted half rests. So here's our first dotted half note right there. Notice how you give it 3 whole beats in this time signature again. Also check out down here, you have a dotted half note that starts on beat 2. It still gets 3 beats, so that means those 3 beats happen to be this time beats 2, 3, and 4. Right, since you're starting with a quarter note on beat 1. Here's a dotted half rest. You're resting for 3 beats, hence that counting being in parentheses. And then the last measure, actually, I want to point out, here you have a normal half note, so that's worth 2 beats. You have a rest on beat 3, quarter rest, and then a regular quarter note on beat 4. But check this out. What's the difference between this measure and that measure? Here you have a note that starts on beat 1, and then the next time you come back is on beat 4. Here you have a note that starts on beat 1, the next time you come back is on beat 4. The difference is you're holding this note for 3 whole beats, whereas this one you're holding it for 2 and then resting for a beat. So you're going to hear me say ta for less amount of time than I will be up here, right? 3 beats of ta, 2 beats of ta, but we're still coming back in on beat 4 there. Alright, what does this all sound like? Follow the dot. That'll be following along the notes as I say them on ta, and here we go. 2, ready, go. Ta, 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 ta. Ta, 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 ta. I would suggest if that was a little confusing, just listening to that back again. Here's the same thing with me counting it this time. 1, 2, here I go. 1, 3, 4, 1, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4, 1, 4. Listen back to that a few times if that was confusing. If not, then good luck with that worksheet that you'll be seeing pretty soon. And let me know if you need any help, and we'll see you next video.